Hello and welcome to a little showcase on a small little project that I've been working on. It's basically this right here, and what it basically is those games where you've got a bunch of teams, the majority of them are played by an AI, and then one of them's played by you, and the goal of the game is you have a base, and every so often your base will spawn a unit, and then you build up an army of these units, and you go out and attack the other team's bases, and whoever claims all the bases first wins. Well, I basically set one up where there's two teams, and they're both played by an AI, basically just to see how good I am at developing an AI. And here it is. It's not completely done yet. Like, for example, the function that I use to kill an entity isn't exactly working, so the amount of entities loaded in the game just keeps climbing, and so it's basically just a memory leak where over time, if you just leave the game running, it'll use up all of the computer's processing resources and eventually crash your system. But fortunately, that would take many hours that would take a couple days to pull off. But yeah, it's just these two teams, and they both run the exact same AI. And for some reason, the random number generator gets the exact same numbers every single time. And so basically, what was happening is I would run it, it would do one thing, and I would make no changes whatsoever, and I'd run it again, and it'd do the exact same thing, even though the majority of the AI is random numbers being generated, and it just baffles me how it does the exact same thing every single time without fail. But if you change one little thing in the code that shouldn't make any difference at all of a sudden, it does something completely different. It's just the most, it's just weird. But what I did to try and combat that issue is, you see these little planes flying by? Well, every 600 updates, well, sometimes it'll go a bit longer. It'll spawn a little plane. It'll pick a random spot on the screen to drop 5 to 10 units for the team that the plane is on. And as you can see, the frame rate is dropping because got even though there's only 50 units loaded plus the 3 bases, and so really there's only 53, well 40, well numbers changing, but really there's under 50 entities on the screen right now, but the entity count is up at 300 because even though an entity isn't rendered on the screen anymore, it's still loaded in the game's memory, and I don't know why. I I tried to set up something that gets rid of it, but apparently it doesn't work. But as you see here, blue has practically won. They're just failing to take that last red base up. They just turned it neutral. However, red can still potentially take the game back if they get extremely lucky, because even though there's only blue left on the map right now in terms of bases, the drop planes still go by and drop in red units every so often. And as you can see, they all display their health above them, and it's a percentage, so they all have 100 health points, and so it basically displays the health percentage. And they can heal over time, but the rate at which they heal is slower than the rate at which they attack. So if they're right next to an enemy, they can't heal quick enough to survive forever. But yeah, it's not done quite yet. The fact that they group up into platoons, I did not. That's not intentional. It just happens. What I think is going on is they're trying to attack their own teammates, but since they can't actually do damage to each other, to their own teammates, it just ends up with a platoon that goes running by. And I have it set up so that if a unit of the enemy team gets close enough if 2 units of opposite teams get close enough to each other, they'll just automatically attack each other regardless of what their current targets are. and so that actually makes it an advantage for them to group up into platoons like that, because even though they're targeting their teammate, if an enemy gets close enough, they will attack. So if the main central guy that's leading the whole group goes towards an enemy base or an enemy unit, it just they all go buck wild on that base or unit. And so, yeah, platoons not intentional, but it works. So not gonna do anything to fix it. As you can see, red drop plane just dropped in a bunch of more new units, and whole thing goes wild. And I don't know why it freezes when there's only one team left, because what it's supposed to do is if they are unable to find a target, they'll just start roaming around randomly, and if they don't make any progress on getting towards their target, so like if they're not moving closer to it or anything, it'll try and find a new target. Like, for example, this guy right here, he should just be roaming around. He has no excuse to not be roaming around, so I don't know what's going on there. But you can force a drop plane to go by right-clicking. Well, it'll take a second. Oh dear, I just spawned in 4. And up here it shows information on your currently selected entity. You select your, oh dear. Yeah, you select your entity by left clicking on it, however. Yeah, drop planes aren't set to have a target, so that explains that crash right there. I can set up so they have a target so that doesn't cause issues. There we go. If the target is set to 0, it won't do anything. So if you run that again and spawn in some planes, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, yeah. Gonna have to wait until entity count climbs back up again so that the planes are moving slow enough, because they're moving for, oh dear, I hit my mic with my finger. Anyways, because all the units are moving at 2 pixels each update in X, Y directions, X and Y directions separately. And so if they're moving like completely diagonal, it's moving 2 pixels up and 2 pixels over each time it updates, whereas the planes, and the reason for that is when the very first collision detection function I developed, which isn't being used here, it couldn't handle it when objects were traveling faster than that. However, this new one that this here is using can handle faster speeds. I just haven't set it up to use faster speeds because why bother? However, planes are locked completely on the y-axis. However, they move by 4 pixels on the x-axis, which is, it's already hard enough to click on the little units because they're like 5 pixels by 5 pixels, I believe they are. Bases are 10 by 10 and planes are 15 by 15, and those are the image sizes. Yeah, I've got the images right in here if you would like to see them. This is basically the same code that I've been using for a few other projects, which is why I've got a bunch of other images and resources. That's the blue unit. It's the blue base. Blue plane. Neutral base. Red unit. Red base. And red plane. I made all these images myself. I'll actually show the other project that I've been working on with this exact same code here. Well, it's not the exact same code, like all it's different entity functions and stuff like that, but all the things that deal with rendering things out in collision detections and basically all the other stuff that would normally be the same between two games. It's the exact same code between two of them. It's called using a game engine. For those who don't know, where basically you set up a basic code package where it basically contains all the things that you expect to use in every single game you develop, and so therefore when you want to go develop a game, all the hard work is already done. You just have to come up with the ideas and create the swords and the items and the textures and stuff like that. Instead of having to start completely from scratch, which saves a lot of time and effort. Yeah, this is the first time in quite a while the red team has made any progress, which means that the whole drop plane thing actually is helping to change things up, because like I said before, if you don't change anything in the code, it'll do the exact same thing every single time. The same team will win the exact same way every single time, but now that the drop planes are in, it's actually randomizing it properly, and things are happening differently this time around, which is good to see. I was inspired to make this by the Clay Soldiers mod in Minecraft. I was messing around with that to see if I can get two armies to fight, and it wasn't going exactly as planned, and so I decided, you know what? I've got a very basic game engine set up. Let's try and make my own version of this, and here it is. However, it's not completely done to my satisfaction yet. Got a little report log here to keep track of what's going on. Yeah. Let's run it again to see what happens this time around. See if red win. Well, red didn't win, but you could see that either it was going to go on forever or red was going to win. Yeah, I think that beginning stage there is always gonna be the same until the drop planes start coming in. It'll probably be the exact same every single time. But as soon as the drop planes start taking effect in the game, that's probably when it'll start doing things differently. There goes the first drop plane. Because the way the drop planes work is when when a drop plane goes by, it'll wait for the game to update 600 times before it'll try to do another drop plane. And then once that counter hits 0, it'll generate a random number between 1 and 5. And if it comes up with 1, that'll send it over another plane. But if it comes up with 2, 3, 4, or 5, it'll wait another 300 updates before it tries again. And when you right click it, sets it to 700, which basically tells it, hey, force it. I don't care what you think, just force a plane to go by. What I'm thinking of adding in is having it so that if a team is not doing so well, then it's more likely that their plane is going to go by, and maybe it'll take less time for the next one. But I don't know. And I've got the tilde key, which is the key above the tab, and to the left of the 1 button, which toggles this debug information. The red and blue power it's currently selected on the red base up here, and that's basically showing the influence of the two teams. The blue team, in order for the blue team to capture that, they have to take this all the way down to 0, and the big base will become neutral, and then they have to take that all the way up to 100, and then it'll finally become registered as a blue base. And I do believe that each time a unit attacks a base, it doesn't even do a full point of damage. However, I don't think that's true, because then that would be displaying in decimals, but I don't know. Not entirely sure. Yeah. Seems like red is winning again. Has me a bit concerned that maybe by giving the drop planes a target value that it changed the outcome of the war, because that's how the random number generation works here apparently. If you change a single little thing in a part of the game, in the part of the code that should have no effect whatsoever, all of a sudden the entire outcome of the entire thing is affected, and it'll do the exact same thing every single time for no reason at all. It's just, I don't know. In terms of spawning the units, the amount of units that each team can have is limited to how many bases they can have. So they can have 50 units per base. And so with this map layout with 3 bases, the maximum amount of units a single team can have is 150 if they have all 3 bases. However, that's just limiting when a base can spawn a unit. If there's already 150 units on the map and a unit is spawned in by a drop plane, then it'll still do that. It just, the bases will not spawn more units if the team goes past that limit. Like, as you can see now, the red team has 100 units and they have those 2 bases, so the only way the red team can spawn more units is if a unit gets killed and they spawn a replacement, or if a drop plane comes by and spawns in more. Because until they get that last base there, their cap is 100, and they're at that right now. However, the blue team only has the 1 base, so they can only go up to 50. When I first started, it was a set limit that doesn't change at all, and it affected both teams. So that it was basically, there can only be this many units in the game in general. However, I changed that so that the armies can get bigger if you have more bases. Because that's one thing I didn't like about the Clay Soldiers mod, is because you could set up little bases where they can spawn in from. However, by adding more bases, it doesn't increase the army size, and I didn't like that, and so that's why I have it set up here so that the limit is per base instead of the whole field. Yeah, we can select a different unit here. This is unit number 473. Oh, let's select the plane. Is it selected? Yeah, we selected the plane. Why is the Y value changing? We did not select the plane. But anyways, yeah. I'll show you that other project that I've been working on. It's this one here, I believe. Yes, it is. So this is where I've been developing that game engine that I used for the other one. This isn't an actual game. It's just developing the engine. Just getting things to work, but as you can see, gravity is supposed to be enabled. However, the jumping feature is working a bit like a jetpack right at the moment, which I do not like. However, this guy here is patrolling back and forth, and if I get close enough, he'll get angry and come after me. Yep. He's chasing after me now, and he's attacking me, and I can attack back, but only if I'm within range. And he's got a little dead image there, dead graphic. He's dead. The player can die too. I'll reload without gravity. World gravity false. And relaunch. Yeah, now there's no gravity. And he's still running the same patrol function. It's just now instead of stopping and pausing, he goes up and down on the y-axis, because The reason why he was stopping down here is because he was trying to go up and down on the y-axis but couldn't. Anyways, yeah, I'll let him kill me this time to prove that the player can die. Takes a second. And I'm dead. If I let him get close. Yep, he's now chasing after me. Yep. And you can still push this crate around. Oh dear. However, these crates here are set to have they're set to still collide, but set to not be able to move, so they're just sitting there rigid. And that. Brilliant. That's amazing. And got the same thing going on here with selecting the different entities. Except the buttons are different, got me confused. My health is -10. Brilliant. That's good to know. Oh, hit the mic. Anyways, yeah. That's all about do it. If you'd like to know, all this was started by this game here, which I have showed on my channel before. This is what started it all. This is where I developed the original collision function. Oh dear. Look like he picked. As you can see, the collision function in this game here, it works fine here. But in the other games that I've been making throughout my times, the way I've dealt with motion has changed each time. And because of that, this same function, which works fine here, it practically didn't work at all when I got to this one here. Oh dear. Close that out. I believe this is another one I can show you. Yeah. This is one that I don't like to talk about because I was trying to set it up so that you could tile images here, but as you can see, it didn't really work out. So yeah, I just, oh dear, I killed myself. I hit F, suicide button. Yeah, I don't like to talk about this one. This is using the same collision function from that game I just showed you, and as you can see, it doesn't work. You have to, there we go. Anyways, yep. This is my to-do list for that first original one there, if it'll open. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna end it off here. See you guys in the next one.